throughout my entire time playing World of Warcraft, I've played basically nothing but warrior in both retail and in classic. Charging into your enemies and yelling directly into their face is awesome. Of course, I've explored other classes as well, like recently I leveled a mage, and yeah, it was fun exploring all the different farms and stuff, but it's just not really me. And even more recently, I started playing a druid, and I can't lie, it's some of the most fun I've ever had in WoW. The idea of being able to transform into a bear or a cat and just claw your enemies until they bleed to death is about as cool as you can get, and I might honestly consider changing my main character. Remember, if you're not subscribed, we are getting close to 5,000 subscribers, so any help is appreciated. It costs you nothing, and it means the world to me. Last time we got to level 50 by doing quests, dungeons, and all kinds of traditional leveling methods. But now we move into the longest and hardest part of any classic WoW journey, levels 50 to 60. And as much as I'd like to say the goal for today is to get to level 60, unfortunately, that just isn't possible, normally. But we can start to think about our end game gear, and that's why the goal for today is to get the Hand of Justice trinket, one of the absolute best trinkets in the game for melee DPS, but it only has about a 2% drop rate. But luckily for me, I have an advantage over everyone else. Starting off the day, we were in Feralas, ready to grind out the much needed XP, and I was doing a quest that I've never seen or heard of before, and it's a bit of an odd quest. We have to escort a lost night elf, which I mean is pretty normal, we get escort quests all the time, but in this one the girl gets distracted and we have to use a bell to call her back to us. I only say it's odd because it's not the type of quest that you would have thought was in Classic. It feels much more like a retail quest. After returning Shay the Night Elf to her rock dude, I took the boat over to Feathermoon Stronghold, where I picked up every quest I could find and also grabbed the flight point, and got started with collecting 10 Naga scales, which is exactly what it sounds like. Kill Naga and tear off their scales. I then headed back across the water in order to do a few more quests, like killing water elementals in order to collect water cores. And then another weird quest, having us kill some big water giants, but obviously they are big and elite mobs, so we wouldn't be able to solo them. But we are given, I guess, a shrink ray, which will shrink the giants and allow us to kill them. Pretty cool stuff. I then headed deeper into Feralas to do the Yeti Kill and Collect quest, and the funny thing about this one is I remember doing this quest very quickly on my warrior, since if you skim the Yetis, you have a chance at getting a quest item as well. But obviously, we don't have that, so it did take a little bit longer. I then went and did the Gorduni Ogre Kill quest, which took a while because the shamans did not want to spawn for some reason. And finally for Feralas, I headed back across the water to the second island, and stealthed into this cave in order to take down a little mini-boss. And that was it. We had finished Feralas. I mean, you know me, I skipped the ones that I didn't want to do. But the next time I logged on, it was a peaceful, late night session in Tanaris. I was out killing ogres, killing massive plant monsters for the Noggin Fogger quest, picking up random dusty relics from the dirt. All was good. And then I decided that I would go off and do the pirate killing quest, since it's late at night and I know if that I leave it till tomorrow, this place is going to be crowded. And I was just killing my mob when our villain showed up. A random, hostile mage trying to take advantage of the fact that I had a mob on me. I try my best to fight, but since I don't have the sufficient mana or health, he ends up killing me. But I wasn't going to let that stand. I was going to take him down. So I engaged him, both of us at full health and mana. The fight was looking good for me, until a random shaman came out of the shadows and decided to make this a 2 versus 1. Even when I tried to make it fair, the horde always come up with a scummy tactic. But I was determined to get this mage by himself. Show him that if he did play fair, he would lose. And that's when I found my chance. He's full health, full mana. So I open him with a Ravage, followed by a Claw. He tries to Frost Nova me, but I power shift to break it, Trying desperately, he blinks away, so I switch into bear form and feral charge him to interrupt his spell casting. He hides in his ice block. That's fine. And maybe I should have taken the time to reset, but my feral charge was about to be off cooldown. He blinks away and I charge at him once again. I hit him with a bash to stun him and switch to cat form and then shred and finish him off with a claw. No shaman to save you this time, mage. And unfortunately, I never saw him after that. Look, I know I'm not very good at PvP, but I think this was probably the most fun fight I've had. After returning to Gadget-san and turning in my quests, I decided I would finish the Noggin Fogger quest chain. Not because I had any use for Noggin Fogger, but just because I wanted to see if the game would allow me to become a tiny cat. So, I hopped on a bird and began making my way over to the Hinterlands so that I could complete the next quest. Once there, we have to dive into a pond in order to pick up a mushroom. Simple. And then it was back to Gadget-san to turn in the quest. A 45-minute round trip. You cannot convince me that this wasn't worth it. I finished up what was left in Tanaris, mainly the Waste Wander quests and the Bug Murder quests. After that, we had finished Tanaris, like genuinely every single quest I had done, apart from a couple of quests to the east because I was too lazy to go over there. But the point still stands. So, I looked at my map and began to scan for zones that I wanted to quest in, and went with Searing Gorge. I arrived and began picking up all of the quests as per usual, and got started with the quests up top first. And as I was looting a little chest, I came across another druid. My initial intention was to kill him, but he was actually quite friendly. I continued working on my quest when I got invited by a dwarf priest, and he was level 60, but he had the intention of completing every single quest in the game, which I fully respect. Also, shout out to this guy. So that was me for the next few hours. We did basically everything there was to do. We took down 1,000,000 dark iron dwarves, 20 golems, and 20 spiders, until we eventually decided to jump into the lower part of the cauldron where we would once again murder a gazillion dwarves. But we continued to move whilst in this underground area, and we were able to find Overseer Maltorius, who we needed to kill for a quest. And I thought that maybe we would struggle with this since it was 3 elite mobs, but we were actually completely fine. We then jumped down to the Incendosauruses to kill 20 of them, and I don't think I have ever seen a mob respawn as quickly as these things. We then made it back up to the surface and decided not to do the Spyglass quest since the drop rate is mega low. So I turned in all of the quests and said goodbye to my little dwarf friend, and I logged out for a bit. When I logged back on later the same day, I went back into the Hinterlands for a few more quests. Now I know there really isn't many quests here, but I was extremely close to level 52, and I wanted to squeeze out that last few bits of XP so that I could start questing in my favourite zone in the entire game. I got started with collecting the troll tribal necklaces, and whilst I was at it, I did the cage checking quest, and then headed further into the Hinterlands to another troll camp where we could also check the last cage. Simple stuff. And finally for the Hinterlands was the slime quest. Just kill a few slimes. That is the most standard fantasy MMO quest imaginable. And we got that done pretty quickly. I then returned to the dwarves to turn in the quests, and we hit level 52, which means it was time for me to finally return to my favourite zone for the first time in ages. But what zone is that? Fellwood? Burning Steppes? Nah. I love Ungoro Crater. Everything about this zone is amazing. It does the jungle aesthetic perfectly. The trees make you feel isolated from the rest of Azeroth as they cover the sky above you. Little streams running through the entire zone, and the enemies just fit. Dinosaurs and giant bugs. Perfect. As I ran into the zone for the first time, I could not be more excited. I first stopped off at this little Tauren NPC to grab a couple of quests, and instead of going straight up to the back of the zone, I decided to get some quest completion down the south of the zone first, starting with killing a few oversized bugs for a scent gland and gathering Ungoro soil. I then decided that it would probably be best if I just quickly grabbed the quest to the north, you know, to be efficient and whatnot. So as I was going, I was gathering blood mud caps, and then decided to kill the tar lurkers for the super sticky tar. But eventually we do make it to the north part of the zone, so of course I picked up every quest in sight and then got straight back to questing. And the other thing I love about this zone is that everything works together. You're going off to do one thing, but as you're going there you find 15 different kinds of mobs to kill, and that was me set for a few hours. I ran around the entire zone killing the pterodax, living plants and dimetrodons. Basically, if it moved, I was going to kill it. And I was turning in some of the quests and I noticed that the rewards for the next one were amazing and would give me a chest piece called Grizzled Pelt. 17 strength, 16 agility, and 11 stamina. Well, obviously I have to have that, but that would require me to go into Sunken Temple, a dungeon that I had never done before. But I thought, screw it, why not, let's do it. So I hopped on a bird and started making my way to the dungeon entrance. After waiting for like an hour for everyone to arrive, we finally got started by making our way through the never-ending stairs. And we decided to first clear out all 6 of the balcony mini-bosses, which is exactly what it sounds like. We clear around in a big circle and go out onto 6 balconies to kill a mini-boss. Once everything was clear, we then needed to click on a bunch of statues in the right order. So we all went out onto our own balcony and clicked until it was right. Then a new boss spawns down below, so we drop down to clear out the trash and start to attack the boss. And it turns out this is actually what I needed for my quest, so thank God we went through that entire process. We then jumped down into the main area of the dungeon and began to clear out every single trash mob we could find. Because in this dungeon, once you pull the last boss, if there are any dragons still living, they will all rush you at once. Eventually, we make it round to this dark room that is filled with loads and loads of trolls, and they were annoying. They fear all the time, and they turn into indestructible spirits that chase you around. Really just not a good time. But after a few minutes of clearing, we get onto the first boss, Ogom the Wretched, who dropped just a cloth cloak. Once we were out of that room, 2 new dragons spawned to attack us. The first being Dream Scythe, who we killed no problem, and the other being Weaver, who we killed no problem. We then continue to clear our way towards the last boss of the dungeon, but before that we need to kill 2 more green dragons, Hazaz and Morphaz, and weirdly no loot dropped from them. And then it was time for the last boss, Shade of Iranicus, and I kinda thought that this was going to go bad since the tank kept getting slept by the boss, but in the end we were able to take it down. And that's Sunken Temple. Pretty cool dungeon to be honest, lots of weird mechanics and stuff. I then returned to Ungoro Crater to claim my lovely new chest piece and finish off the quests from earlier, and kill a random helpless mage. And that's when I realised that I was now level 53, and well, if you read Hand of Justice, we are able to equip it at level 53, and if you haven't figured it out already, I was going to learn how to farm it on my mage, which means I would need the Shadow Forge key, which I could get from a Blackrock Depths quest. So, before I went and did that, I thought it would be a good idea to start the Onyxia attunement quest by completing Dragonkin Menace, which I figured out pretty quickly that I was way too low of a level for it. So, I called on a guildie to help me out, and we were able to get it done in no time at all. I then headed over to the Blackrock Depths entrance and began to search for a group. Luckily, I was able to find myself a group that wasn't doing absolutely everything in the dungeon, because that would take way too long. But we were going to do everything I would need to get a key. We started off by doing Arena, and our very first run we got a Gorosh spawn, but no SGC. We then went down the back of Arena to kill Pyromancer Lorgrain, and turns out that this is actually where you turn in the key quest. I always thought that you turned it in behind the very last boss, Dagran. We then went all the way back to Arena and started to clear our way to Anger. And I mean, hey, maybe we won't even need to learn a new farm, right? One can dream, I suppose. We then went down to Golem Lord, obviously so that the healer could have a chance at getting themselves the trinket, but unfortunately it did not drop. We then jumped out of the window to get to Incendius, and then obviously killed Incendius. We then get to the boss that we actually need, Phineas Darkfire. We just need to kill him and loot an item off of him. We actually then went and did the lava run in order to get the Molten Core attunement. Sadly though, I wasn't able to complete it because I wasn't a high enough level to accept the quest, which is fine I suppose since I can solo it later. We then finish up by going through this massive hallway that I still have no idea what's going on in, and then taking on Emperor Dagran Thorisan. I could then turn in the quest and I received my key, which means I could now start to farm out my beautiful trinket. So I logged on to my mage and I got to work. Of course I did take my time to do a bit of research beforehand, so I know what I'm doing, mostly. First step is to actually get to Anger. Luckily, that would be the easy part. This first hallway we could just run straight through because we're going to jump out of the window anyway, which is also a reset spot. Now in order to get past the next part, we will actually run up this side here and jump on top. Then it's just a case of jumping onto this invisible floor. The next part would be a little bit trickier since we can't pull any mobs, otherwise we would die. So we use an invisibility potion to run through unharmed. However, I am a complete idiot. The next run I actually do it right and we were able to invis our way through the mobs. Then it was just a simple case of clearing a few mobs in order to make it easier for ourselves. After that's done, we are ready to pull the boss. We first pull the boss with a pyroblast and start to clear off these small adds that were with him. Sadly though, one of the destroyers got pulled. Still not sure how because it's definitely not meant to happen, and eventually it killed us. My third attempt was actually going pretty well and we managed to get Anger low enough that he started calling in his second wave of mobs. But like I said earlier, I'm just an idiot and was not managing my health very well and died. My fourth attempt, we are actually successful and are able to take Angerforge down. Okay, so no Hand of Justice, but with these mage farms, usually I'm pretty consistent after doing it once, which is exactly how it went. My next attempt, we only got the Angerforge battle axe, but then the third kill came around, and Hand of Justice drops. I was ecstatic, pure joy coursing through my veins. Okay, well, we take that. But with my Hand of Justice in hand, that means that we had completed the goal for today. Hope you all enjoyed today's video because I enjoyed making it. I always do. Remember, if you're not subscribed, we are getting close to 5,000 subscribers and any help is appreciated. Also, if you've not liked the video, then like the video, etc, etc. We are getting close to level 60 and I do have something planned for hitting level 60, a nice little video, which will hopefully will also tie into hitting 5,000 subscribers. Hopefully. I do also have another mage video coming out, so look forward to that one as well. Gotta say, still loving Druid. I'm definitely going to be taking Druid into TBC when that comes out. You know, I was planning on taking Warrior into TBC, but with things like Arena, Warrior just is a kite fest, you know. It just gets taken around for a ride, and it that doesn't sound very fun to me, so I'm gonna take Cat instead. Anyway, I think that's enough yapping for today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.